Dr. Zathara floated into her classroom feeling excited about today's lesson. Her 4 purple tentacles moved gracefully as she arranged the teaching equipment. This wasn't just any ordinary day at the Space Academy. Today marked the first ever interspecies classroom exchange program in the entire galaxy. The classroom buzzed with nervous energy. Students from 12 different alien worlds sat together for the very first time. Near the front, 3 Velkari students whispered to each other, their green scales catching the light. These reptilian beings could actually eat sunlight when they got stressed out, which was pretty amazing if you asked anyone. Behind them sat a group of luminans, who looked almost like living ghosts made of soft light. They didn't talk with their mouths like most species. Instead, they flashed different colored lights from their bodies to communicate. Right now, they were having what looked like a disco conversation, with blues and yellows dancing across their translucent skin. The cognitrons occupied an entire corner by themselves, but that made sense since each individual was actually 5 separate bodies sharing one mind. They could literally be in 5 places at once thinking about 5 different things simultaneously. Other students found this both fascinating and slightly creepy. And then there were the humans. 5 students from Earth sat quietly in the middle, rows. Jiwon adjusted his glasses nervously while his friend Minho doodled in his notebook. Yuna looked around the room with wide, curious eyes, clearly amazed by all the different types of beings around her. Hyuk and Sumin sat together, occasionally whispering comments about their strange new classmates. Dr. Zathara cleared her throat, which sounded more like a musical chime given her species' unique vocal cords. The room fell silent immediately. "Welcome, young minds, to our first joint learning experience," she announced, her voice carrying the excitement of a teacher who genuinely loved her job. "Today we'll explore what makes each of your species special through comparative evolutionary biology." She activated the holographic projector, and suddenly the room filled with 3-dimensional images of different planets and the creatures that lived on them. The students leaned forward, even the usually reserved cognitrons showing interest. "Let's begin with our Velkari friends," Dr. Zathara said warmly. The green-scaled students straightened up with pride as images of their sun-soaked homeworld appeared. When Velkari experience high stress or danger, their scales can actually convert solar radiation directly into usable energy. This means they become stronger and faster exactly when they need it most. The Velkari students demonstrated by concentrating hard, causing their scales to shimmer and brighten noticeably. Several other students gasped in appreciation. "Remarkable, isn't it?" Dr. Zathara continued. "Now, our Luminan companions have perhaps the most sophisticated communication system in the known galaxy." The ghostly Luminan students began flashing in complex patterns, creating what looked like a light show but was actually an incredibly detailed conversation about quantum mathematics. The display was so beautiful that even Jiwon forgot to feel nervous for a moment. "And our cognitron friends," Dr. Zathara gestured toward the corner where the 5-bodied beings sat, "can process information and solve problems at speeds that would make our most advanced computers seem sluggish." To demonstrate, the cognitrons quickly solved a complex engineering problem that Dr. Zathara projected, with each of their 5 bodies working on different aspects simultaneously. The solution appeared in under 30 seconds, complete with detailed calculations. The room filled with impressed murmurs and excited chatter. Each species had shown abilities that seemed almost magical to the others. Then Dr. Zathara reached the humans in her presentation, and the atmosphere shifted noticeably. Her tentacles drooped slightly, and she seemed to struggle with her words. "And finally, we have our human students," she said, trying to maintain her enthusiastic tone but clearly finding it difficult. "Humans represent what we academically term a baseline species." The human students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Around the room, alien eyes turned toward them with a mixture of curiosity and pity. "Humans possess no significant evolutionary advantages," Dr. Zathara continued, consulting her notes as if hoping to find something positive to say. "No enhanced physical capabilities, no unique biological gifts, no specialized organs for extreme environments." Yuna's cheeks reddened, while Minho stopped doodling and stared at his desk. The other human students looked equally uncomfortable. However, Dr. Zathara added quickly, trying to soften her words, humans have shown remarkable determination throughout their history. They compensate for their biological limitations through persistence and, well, rather ingenious tool-making. Abilities. The word compensate hung in the air like a bad smell. Around the room, alien students exchanged glances. Some looked sympathetic. Others seemed confused about how such apparently ordinary creatures had even achieved space travel. But Jiwon straightened up in his chair. Something about Dr. Zathara's explanation didn't sit right with him. He looked around at his fellow humans, seeing determination rather than defeat in their eyes. Slowly, Jiwon raised his hand. Dr. Zathara's 4 tentacles twitched with curiosity as she looked at Jiwon's raised hand. In all her years of teaching, she had rarely seen such quiet confidence from a species she considered so ordinary. "Yes, young human?" she asked, her voice carrying a mixture of politeness and genuine interest. Jiwon stood up slowly, his voice steady despite the dozens of alien eyes now focused on him. "Dr. Zathara, instead of just talking about what we can do, why don't we actually show you? Actions speak louder than words, right?" Behind him, Minho looked up from his notebook with a grin. Yuna nodded enthusiastically while Hayek and Sumin exchanged determined glances. The human students seemed to share some unspoken understanding. Dr. Zathara's bioluminescent patches flickered with what could only be described as amusement. Here were these supposedly basic creatures, challenging her to test them against species, with obvious supernatural abilities. It was either very brave or very foolish. An interesting proposition, she mused, her tentacles swaying as she thought. Very well. I believe I have just the thing. She led the entire class through the ship's gleaming corridors to a massive chamber marked with warning signs in 12 different languages. The holographic simulation room was normally reserved for advanced military training, but Dr. Zathara had special clearance for educational purposes. "Students, you are about to face a scenario that has stumped military academies across the galaxy for decades," she announced as the room transformed around them. The walls disappeared, replaced by the sight of a massive space station spinning helplessly through the void. The holographic display was so realistic that several students instinctively stepped backward. Emergency lights flashed red across the station's hull, and they could actually hear the simulated distress calls crackling through the speakers. "Space Station Omega-7, Dr. Zathara explained, manipulating the display to show cutaway views of the interior. "Critical system failures across all major departments. Life support failing on levels 3 through 7. 43 civilians trapped in various sections. Power grid cascading toward complete shutdown." She zoomed in on different areas, showing the scope of the disaster. Fires burned in the engineering sections, debris blocked crucial corridors, and radiation leaks threatened anyone who tried to approach certain areas. "The rescue window is closing rapidly," she continued. "Each species will have exactly 30 minutes to develop a comprehensive rescue plan. You must use your natural abilities to their absolute fullest potential." The alien students immediately sprang into action, their specialized abilities activating instinctively. The Velkari team huddled together, their scales already beginning to shimmer as they entered their stress-powered state. They started calculating power consumption rates, their enhanced minds working through complex energy redistribution scenarios. Their leader, a student named Thrak, began sketching power grid modifications while his scales glowed brighter and brighter. "If we reroute the main conduits through the secondary plasma channels," Thrak muttered, his enhanced state allowing him to process engineering calculations at superhuman speed, "we can boost life support by 37%. Meanwhile, the Luminen team created something that looked like the most complex light show ever conceived. Their bodies flashed in rapid, intricate patterns as they designed a communication network that could coordinate rescue efforts across the entire station simultaneously. Their ethereal forms began to pulse in perfect synchronization, creating a visual language so sophisticated that it made human writing look like cave paintings. The Cognitrons were perhaps the most impressive to watch. Their 5 bodies split up across the simulation space, each one tackling a different aspect of the crisis. One body analyzed structural damage, another calculated evacuation routes, a third worked on life support systems, the fourth planned equipment deployment, and the fifth coordinated everything into a master strategy. They were literally thinking about 5 complex problems at the same time. Other alien species demonstrated their own remarkable abilities. The crystalline architects projected geometric solutions that could restructure damaged sections. The phase shifters planned to move directly through solid barriers to reach trapped civilians. And then there were the humans, Jiwan, Minho, Yuna, Hyuk, and Sumin, gathered in a small circle near the back of the simulation space. While every other species had immediately begun showcasing their spectacular abilities, the humans did something that seemed almost primitive by comparison. They just started talking. Not flashing lights, not glowing with enhanced energy states, not splitting their consciousness across multiple bodies. They stood in a circle and had what appeared to be a perfectly ordinary conversation. Dr. Zathara found herself drifting closer to listen, her curiosity getting the better of her professional neutrality. Okay, so the Velkari can solve the power problem, Yuna was saying, gesturing with her hands as she spoke. And the Luminants can handle communication across the entire station. Right, Minho nodded. And the Cognitrons can process all the technical stuff way faster than we ever could. But look at this. Jiwan pointed to the holographic display. See how all these solutions work in isolation? The Velkari fix power in Section A, but that doesn't help the Luminans coordinate in Section B. Hyuk stepped closer to the display, studying it intently. What if we connected everything? What if we made all these different solutions work together instead of separately? The human students continued their simple conversation while around them, alien minds performed calculations that would challenge supercomputers. Yet something about the humans' approach made Dr. Zathara's tentacles twitch with growing unease. They weren't trying to be the best at anything. They were trying to understand everything. The 30 minutes felt like hours as alien teams worked furiously on their solutions. Dr. Zathara watched each group with professional interest, making mental notes about their approaches. The Velkari had created an impressive power restoration plan, their glowing scales now bright enough to illuminate half the simulation room. The Luminans had developed a communication system so advanced it looked like art, with cascading light patterns that could coordinate hundreds of rescue workers simultaneously. The Cognitrons had processed more data in 30 minutes than most species could handle in a week. Their 5-body consciousness had mapped every corridor, calculated every risk, and planned evacuation routes with mathematical precision that was honestly frightening to witness. But the humans? They were still just talking. Dr. Zathara couldn't help but feel a little sorry for them. While their alien classmates showcased abilities that seemed almost godlike, the human students continued their simple discussion, occasionally pointing at the holographic display or sketching basic diagrams on Minho's notebook paper. Time, Dr. Zathara announced, her voice echoing through the simulation chamber. The alien teams immediately began presenting their solutions with obvious pride. Thrak stepped forward for the Velkari, his scales still glowing with residual energy. RE. Power restoration protocol can bring life support systems online within 47 minutes, he announced confidently. We've calculated optimal energy distribution patterns that will maximize efficiency across all affected sections. The presentation was impressive. Charts, graphs, and complex mathematical formulas filled the holographic display. Several students nodded appreciatively at the sophisticated engineering. Next came the Luminans, whose representative didn't speak at all. Instead, she created a light display so beautiful and complex that it took everyone's breath away. The patterns told a complete story of coordinated rescue efforts, with each flash of light representing different teams moving through the station in perfect harmony. Remarkable communication efficiency, Dr. Zathara noted approvingly. Your light language could coordinate rescue efforts with zero miscommunication errors. The Cognitrons presented last among the major alien groups. Their solution was overwhelming in its completeness. Detailed blueprints, risk assessments, equipment lists, timeline schedules, and backup plans for 17 different contingencies. It was the kind of comprehensive planning that military commanders would envy. "Excellent work, everyone," Dr. Zathara said, genuinely impressed by the variety and sophistication of the solutions. Each team has demonstrated the remarkable potential of their species' natural gifts. Then she turned toward the humans with what could only be described as gentle sympathy. "And now, let's see what our human students have prepared." Ji-won stepped forward, carrying Minho's notebook and a simple tablet computer. Around the room, alien students leaned forward with polite curiosity, clearly expecting something quaint and primitive compared to the spectacular displays they'd just witnessed. "Thanks, Dr. Zathara," Ji-won said with a calm smile that somehow commanded attention. "We've been listening to everyone's solutions and they're all absolutely brilliant." He activated his tablet, projecting a surprisingly simple diagram onto the main display. It looked almost childishly basic compared to the complex presentations that had come before. "But here's what we noticed." Yuna stepped up beside him. "All these amazing solutions work great by themselves, but they don't really work together." Minho joined them, pointing to different sections of their simple diagram. "The Valkyrie can restore power to Section C in 47 minutes, which is fantastic. But the people trapped in Section C need to be evacuated in 35 minutes or the restored power won't matter." The alien students shifted uncomfortably. That was a detail most of them had missed in their focus on showcasing their individual capabilities. "The Luminan communication system is incredible," Hyuk continued, "but it only works if the rescue teams can actually reach the areas where people are trapped. And some of those areas have radiation leaks that need the crystalline architects to restructure the passages first." Suman manipulated the display, showing how their simple diagram connected different elements. "So we thought, what if we combined everyone's strengths instead of using them separately?" Ji-won took over, his voice gaining confidence as he explained their approach. "We use the cognitrons to process all the technical data and create the master timeline, but instead of having them plan everything independently, we coordinate their five-body consciousness with the Valkyrie power restoration schedule." The diagram on the screen began to animate, showing how different species' abilities could work in sequence rather than isolation. "The crystalline architects restructure damaged passages in the first 15 minutes, Yuna explained, "which creates safe routes for the phase shifters to reach trapped civilians. Meanwhile, the Valkyrie begin power restoration in areas that the cognitrons have identified as most critical. And the Luminan communication system coordinates everything in real time," Minho added. "But here's the key part. Humans don't contribute any special abilities to this plan." The room fell silent. Dr. Zathara's tentacles stopped moving entirely. "Instead," Ji-won continued, "we position humans at key integration points throughout the station. We can't photosynthesize like the Valkyrie. We can't split our consciousness like the cognitrons, and we can't communicate through light like the luminans." He paused, looking around the room at dozens of confused alien faces. "But we can talk to all of you. We can understand how your different abilities work, and more importantly, we can see how to make them work together better than they ever could alone." Dr. Zathara's hands trembled as she activated the simulation to test their integrated approach. The results appeared instantly, and her bioluminescent patches dimmed with shock. The human plan didn't just work, it achieved a 97% success rate, nearly 20% higher than any individual species solution. But what truly disturbed her was the scaling potential the computer calculated. The more species involved, the more effective the human approach became, with humans serving as the crucial coordination hubs that made everything else work better. Around the room, alien students stared at their human classmates with completely new eyes, finally beginning to understand that what they had dismissed as evolutionary failure might actually be something far more sophisticated and powerful than any of them had ever imagined. Dr. Zathara couldn't sleep that night. She floated in her quarters, staring out at the stars while her mind raced with uncomfortable thoughts. The simulation results kept flashing through her consciousness, like a warning signal she couldn't ignore. 97% success rate, 20% higher than any other solution. She had been teaching interspecies biology for over 40 years, and nothing had ever challenged her understanding of evolution quite like this. How could a species with no apparent special abilities outperform creatures who could literally bend the laws of physics? Unable to rest, she made her way to the ship's massive data archives. The floating corridors were empty at this hour, with only the soft hum of life support systems keeping her company. She needed answers, and she needed them badly. Dr. Zathara began pulling up every file related to human contact with other species. What she found made her tentacles curl with growing anxiety. The first contact records were strange enough. When humans had encountered the Velkari Trading Confederation 15 years ago, something unexpected happened. Trade efficiency in Velkari space routes increased by 34% within just 2 years. The official reports attributed this to improved logistics coordination, but no one had ever explained exactly what that meant. She dug deeper. When humans joined the Luminan Cultural Exchange Program, artistic collaboration projects began producing works that individual species had never achieved alone. The Luminan Council's own reports described unprecedented creative synthesis but offered no scientific explanation for the phenomenon. The pattern continued everywhere she looked. Mining operations with human supervisors extracted resources 20% more efficiently than automated systems. Scientific research teams with human coordinators published breakthrough discoveries at rates that defied statistical probability. Even simple diplomatic meetings ran more smoothly when humans were present. Dr. Zathara's bioluminescent patches flickered nervously as she realized she was looking at decades of evidence that everyone had somehow overlooked or dismissed. The next morning, she called an emergency faculty meeting. Professor Crix arrived first, his 5 bodies moving in perfect synchronization as he processed multiple data streams simultaneously. Dr. Velthara glided in next, her crystalline form chiming softly with each movement. Soon, representatives from 8 different species had gathered in the conference room. "Colleagues," Dr. Zathara began, her voice tight with concern, "I believe we have fundamentally misunderstood the nature of human evolution." She activated the room's holographic projector, filling the space with charts and graphs that painted a disturbing picture. "Look at this data. Everywhere humans integrate into existing systems, performance improves dramatically." Professor Crix's primary consciousness focused on the data, while his other 4 bodies continued their normal activities. "The correlation is undeniable," he admitted, his mechanical voice carrying an unusual note of uncertainty. "But correlation doesn't necessarily imply causation, doesn't it?" Dr. Zathara challenged, pulling up more files. Human integrated trading posts show consistent efficiency gains. Mixed crews with human coordinators outperform single-species teams by significant margins. Even our own educational outcomes have improved since humans joined our exchange programs, Dr. Velthara's crystalline form resonated with a concerned harmonic. "What exactly are you suggesting, Zathara?" "I'm suggesting that we've been thinking about evolution completely wrong," Dr. Zathara replied, her tentacles gesticulating frantically. "We assumed that the most advanced species would be those with the most spectacular individual abilities. Superstrength, telepathy, energy manipulation, these seemed like obvious evolutionary advantages." She manipulated the display, showing comparative charts of different species' capabilities. "But what if the ultimate evolutionary advantage isn't being the best at one thing? What if it's being good enough at everything to understand how to make everyone else better?" The room fell silent except for the soft humming of various alien breathing apparatus and thinking mechanisms. Professor Crix processed this concept through all 5 of his consciousness threads simultaneously. "You're describing systems integration, intelligence," he said slowly. "The ability to understand and optimize complex multi-component systems, particularly those involving different types of consciousness and capability sets." "Exactly," Dr. Zathara confirmed. "Humans don't enhance themselves, they enhance everyone around them. They're like universal adapters for consciousness itself." Dr. Velthara's crystalline structure shifted to a deeper, more resonant tone. "The implications are staggering. If humans can genuinely improve the performance of any group they join, then they're not just another species," Dr. Zathara finished. They're potentially the most strategically valuable beings in the galaxy. The faculty members exchanged worried glances across multiple spectrums of communication. Some species communicated their concern through bioluminescence, others through harmonic frequencies, and still others through electromagnetic field fluctuations. But the message was universal. They had discovered something that would change everything. "We need to verify this," Professor Crick stated. His logical process is working overtime. Run more simulations, gather additional data, test the hypothesis under controlled conditions. But even as he spoke, they all knew the truth. The evidence was overwhelming, consistent, and had been hiding in plain sight for decades. Humans weren't the weakest species in the galaxy. They might very well be the most powerful, and they didn't even seem to know it themselves. Dr. Zathara looked around the room at her colleagues' concerned faces and realized that this discovery would spread beyond their academic circle very quickly. Military commanders, political leaders, and economic strategists across the galaxy would soon understand what the humans' true gift really meant. The balance of galactic power was about to shift in ways no one could have predicted within 3 days. The story had leaked beyond the academic conference room. Dr. Zathara's discovery spread through galactic communication networks faster than a solar flare. What started as a simple classroom demonstration aboard the Confluence was now being discussed in the highest levels of government across 47 different civilizations. The first call came from Admiral Thexus of the Velkari Defense Fleet. His scaled face appeared on Dr. Zathara's personal communicator, looking more troubled than she had ever seen a military commander appear. "Professor," he said without any formal greeting, "I need to know everything about this human integration ability. Our intelligence division has been analyzing fleet performance data, and we're seeing patterns that match your academic findings." Dr. Zathara's tentacles curled nervously. "What kind of patterns, Admiral?" "Joint exercises with human tactical advisors show efficiency improvements of up to 40%. Our pilots respond better to human coordinators than to our own species. Commanders, it's as if humans can see connections in our military operations that we ourselves miss." Similar calls flooded in throughout the day. The Luminan Cultural Council wanted to discuss how human presence had revolutionized their artistic collaborations. The Cognitron Collective reported that their distributed consciousness networks actually worked more efficiently when humans helped coordinate the connections between their multiple bodies. By the end of the week, the Galactic Council had called an emergency session, something that hadn't happened in over 2 centuries. Dr. Zathara found herself standing before the most powerful beings in the known universe, in a chamber so vast that some representatives appeared only as distant lights in the far reaches of the assembly. The gravity generators worked overtime to accommodate species from dozens of different planetary environments. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice amplified across multiple frequency ranges to reach every type of hearing organ present. "What we initially observed as a simple classroom exercise has revealed something profound about human evolutionary development." She activated the massive holographic projector at the center of the chamber. Charts and graphs filled the space above the assembled delegates, showing decades of performance data from across the galaxy. "Humans don't just adapt to existing systems," she explained, highlighting key statistics. "They optimize them. Every alliance they join becomes more effective. Every project they contribute to exceeds its projected outcomes. They don't make themselves superior. They make everyone around them superior." Murmurs rippled through the assembly in hundreds of different languages and communication methods. Bioluminescent displays flickered with concern among the Luminan delegation. The Cognitron representatives began processing the implications through their networked consciousness at visible high speed. Chancellor Vorthak of the Crystalline Alliance resonated with a tone that translated roughly to skeptical concern. "You're suggesting that humans represent some form of evolutionary catalyst?" "More than that," Dr. Zathara replied, manipulating the display to show predictive models. "Our analysis suggests that human coordination abilities scale exponentially. The more diverse the group, the more different species and capabilities involved. The more effective their integration becomes. The implications hit the assembly like a gravity wave. If humans could genuinely improve any alliance, any military force, any economic partnership they joined, then controlling access to human coordinators could determine the balance of power in the galaxy. Ambassador Kelthan of the Phase Shifter Collective spoke next, his form flickering between dimensions as he processed the concept. Have the humans themselves demonstrated awareness of this capability? Dr. Zathara paused, remembering G1's confident smile during the classroom demonstration. That's perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this discovery. They seem to view their ability as completely natural. When questioned about their coordination skills, they express surprise that other species find it unusual. She pulled up interview footage from the past week. G1 appeared on the main display looking relaxed and slightly confused by all the attention. We've always known that working together gets better results than working alone, his recorded image said with a casual shrug. Isn't that just common sense? I mean, when you have different people with different strengths, obviously you want to find ways to combine those strengths effectively. The simplicity of his response sent another wave of concerned murmurs through the assembly. They don't see it as a special power, Dr. Zathara continued. To humans, cooperation and mutual enhancement appear to be the natural state of intelligent beings. They genuinely seem to believe that all species should naturally work together to achieve better outcomes. Supreme Coordinator Nelthus of the Hive Mind Collective processed this information through millions of connected thoughts before responding. If humans view integration as a natural responsibility rather than a strategic advantage, they may not attempt to leverage this ability for political gain. That's correct, Dr. Zathara confirmed. In every historical example we've studied, humans have shared the benefits of their coordination abilities freely with their partners. They appear to be genuinely motivated by the success of the group rather than personal advancement. The chamber fell silent as representatives contemplated this revelation. A species that could enhance everyone around them, but had no apparent desire to dominate or control those they helped. Over the following months, the galaxy transformed. Diplomatic relationships shifted as civilizations competed to form partnerships with human coordinators. Trade agreements were restructured to include human integration specialists. Military alliances were reformed around the strategic advantage that human coordination provided. But perhaps most remarkably, the humans themselves adapted to their new role with the same quiet competence they had always shown. They didn't demand special treatment or attempt to exploit their newfound importance. Instead, they simply continued doing what they had always done, helping different groups work better together. G1, now recognized as one of the galaxy's most valuable strategic assets, still insisted on attending his regular classes aboard the Confluence. When asked by galactic media about humanity's impact on interstellar relations, he gave the same response that had started everything. "We're just doing what comes naturally," he said with his characteristic calm smile. "Everyone's better when we work together. We thought you all knew that already." Dr. Zathara watched the interview from her quarters, finally understanding that humanity's greatest gift wasn't their ability to coordinate different species and capabilities. Their real power was the genuine belief that cooperation, mutual enhancement, and shared success were simply the right way for intelligent beings to exist. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in her long career, Dr. Zathara believed that might be exactly what the universe needed.